Hello everyone. So this afternoon I want to talk a little bit about the subject of littering. Okay, so this is an area I used to not give a lot of thought to. In fact, I don't give a lot of thought to it in general, but just going through the park today, big park near where I live, sort of wooded park, quite sizable, decent park. Lots of sort of banks going down into a wooded area. There's a stream running through it. It's a decent park, but going through there, occasionally I saw rubbish, empty bottles, crisp packets. I imagine some of that has been sort of washed around by the rain. We've been having very heavy downpours recently in the northeast of England. Anyway, I want to talk about wider issues, which is to do with littering. I think in the UK there's a tendency for people to complain that it's a move of the Nanny State to sort of have quite a hardline stance on littering and that sort of thing. I'm not sure if I agree with that. You know, maybe at one point I would have thought that littering shouldn't be considered a major thing. It's not a major issue, and I still believe that it shouldn't be considered a crime per se. But I do have very little respect for people who just throw rubbish on the ground with no consideration whatsoever. It does look unpleasant, and I think it is detrimental to wider society for people to have no sort of respect for the city they live in, especially rural areas or greener parts of the city. It just doesn't look good. But it's also a statement of disrespect. It's a very selfish thing to do. I think there's mutual responsibility. I think that the public have a responsibility to not be selfish and to take this problem seriously. Because in Britain, I think it is a bit of a problem. We're an island nation. There's only so much space we have. So the space that we do have, we should respect and keep it clean. You know, I've been so many sort of places, and I'm thinking, well, that would be really nice. That would be scenic if it wasn't for that sort of litter on the ground. And quite often, the frustrating thing is you can see a bin nearby. I mean, are people really so lazy that they can't just put the stuff in the bin? It's just so, I think, so selfish. And I have changed my stance on this. I'm more now of the persuasion that we should have quite hard penalties for people who willfully do it. I think it's different if there's an accident. That is to say, for example, a gust of wind is blowing rubbish away or something like that. That does occasionally happen. Or, for example, there are also situations when local councils will not provide the bins, in which case you can't blame people for not finding a place to put them. Although, even then, I think they should bring it home or something. But I really hate seeing unnecessary mess around the place. Now, I don't quite agree with the method that's used in some Asian countries, which is really, they take that very seriously, and they value, for example, harmonious society and ultra cleanliness over some other issues. I don't think it's the most important thing in society, and I would rather have a society, for example, that respects human rights but is messy, rather than that a society is squeaky clean but, for example, tramples free speech. I don't think that's healthy. I think the best is some sort of middle ground. I mean, surely, you know, it shouldn't be a situation whereby this is imposed but at a price of, for example, violating human rights or something. It's just common sense. Just don't litter. It's crude, immature, selfish behaviour, and it shows a disrespect to society. It shows a disrespect to the country that you're living in. You know, Britain is a beautiful country in many ways, but I do think we have a litter problem in some ways, and I see it a lot. And you know, I live in a street where a lot of the people here do care about our surroundings. I mean, I'm part of a residents association, and every few months we'll have a big tidy up. even though none of us are actually responsible for that litter, because some selfish person has went through the street and just thrown something behind them. But we tidy it up because this is the street we live in and we want it to look good. And you know, when people say, oh, it's the nanny state, I would say, well, that's just an excuse. It isn't the nanny state. It's reasonable. It's a reasonable, decent request that you respect the environment around you. No one's saying it has to be squeaky clean, but you know, to see crisp bags, bottles thrown around, it just, and it isn't just the visual aspect, the aesthetic quality, it's also that can pose a risk to wildlife. You know, small animals can forage in those sort of things like crisp packets or something, and they get stuck and they can suffocate. So there's those sort of issues to consider as well. Rubbish breeds pollution, because then you get all sorts of you know what I'm saying. It's just, I just think it's crudely disrespectful. And I also see this in public toilets sometimes. You see, like, toilets, there is a joke about men's toilets, and I have to say the ladies are right about this. Men's toilets are complete shitholes quite often. And I'm not sort of a namby-pamby person who is like, is squeamish about the sight of, it's not so much that I'm squeamish about that sort of thing, it's more that I sympathise with the people who have to clean up after them. You know, it's someone's job to clean that up, and yes, they're paid for it, but that doesn't mean that you have to make their life all the harder by just making it as, you know, I go into some men's toilets and some guys' toilets are just like, you'll see tissues all over the place and tissues overflowing, and you just know that is because some arsehole has been selfish and they think it's funny to pile it up or something. It really isn't. It's just very immature. And I do respect Asian society, or not just Asian society, but also some Western societies that do care a lot more about civic pride. I think my city is relatively clean as cities go. I've seen British cities that are worse than Sunderland, but, you know, and I mean, give Birmingham credit. Birmingham's a big city, and Birmingham, I've always found central Birmingham very clean. Manchester, in my experience, can improve itself. There's parts of central Manchester that really need some work done there. But you know, generally, I think we could do a lot better than we are doing. And that isn't, I'm not going to blame politicians or local councils for that, because they are trying. They will sort of impose rules. This is more a civic problem. It's more selfish, lazy people who just can't be bothered. And another thing, you know, going through the city centre at night time, you'll get these takeaways and people have just thrown them on the ground, which poses a question: A, why pay for it if you don't want it? And B, it sickens me to see that waste of food. And yeah, this video is a bit of a rant, but you know, it just, I do care about the country around me. I know some people can't be bothered, but I care. Anyway, my phone's ringing. I'm going to have to leave it there. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think there's civic pride in the place you live? I think we can improve. That's my own opinion. Okay, cheers.